Hello, and welcome back to Ask a Newsworker. Today we're going to talk about accountability and the accountability the news business, the news industry has to the public. Is the news business accountable to the public? Is there accountability there? Does the public have a route through which it can address the news industry and say, hey, I have a problem with this, I don't like this, I do like that? How much communication is happening between the news business and the public at large? Well, before we get into that, it's important to acknowledge that the news, ideally speaking, is supposed to be in the public interest. When you see certain journalists or media figures interviewed at certain times, they will often bring up the public interest as their main motivation. If they're pressed, why are you doing this? Why are you reporting on this? Why are you making this into news? A lot of them will say in their defense that they're doing it in the public interest. The public has the right to know. The public needs to find this information out. They're doing it in the public interest. They're doing it for the public. So every news person supposedly, probably in some sense, is doing it for the public's benefit. That is the fallback that a lot of media people rest upon when they're pressed about their work. Why are you doing it? Why are you taking this particular angle? Why are you being aggressive in this particular area? They'll say, I'm doing it for the public. I'm doing it in the public interest. You'll see that justification come up a lot. I understand that, and I think that that is the case in many cases. There are many people within journalism who do have the public interest in mind. But there is a phenomenon sometimes that I've noticed as a news worker that a lot of people in the news, a lot of people who work in the news business, don't seem to really care too much about what the public thinks. And in fact, in some very blunt and open cases, will actually have contempt for the public and be almost angry that they have anything to say at all. There have been many situations over the years where the press has been criticized or attacked by the public. Sometimes reporters have been physically attacked. That's not good. I would certainly never support that. But then there are other instances where the public is simply giving feedback or criticism into how the news business operates from their perception, asking questions, wondering why the news is the way it is. And instead of patiently listening to people and saying, I wonder why so many people in the public, or at least a percentage of the public, has such a negative opinion of the news or news people, wonder what we can do about that. Maybe we should hear them out and just at least listen to what they're saying. There's a lot of people that I've come across in the news business who really don't care. In fact, are annoyed or angry that people have anything to say about their reporting at all that isn't total praise, that isn't total celebration, which I find to be very unfair, very strange. And again, counter to the entire idea of serving the public interest. It's difficult to serve the public interest while also resenting the public and being annoyed or angry that they're there at all. But that is the position that a lot of people within the press seemingly take. They claim they're doing it in the public interest when they're put on the defensive, but then when the public actually speaks up and says, hey, we have an issue with your reporting, we have an issue with your angle, we have an issue with your tactics, with your protocol, your procedures, your practices, a lot of people in the news business will say, who are you to question me? I'm a news professional who is completely beyond criticism and perfect in every way. Of course, that's not every news person, but there are news people who will take a lot of offense to anyone implying that maybe they're not doing their jobs as well as they could be, as responsibly as they could be, as great as they could be. I'm certainly not like that. I will fully admit to anyone who engages me in public about the news business that there are many flaws and shortcomings. I'm actually very concerned about them. Part of why I even started this channel was to have some sort of outreach, some sort of connection to the general public where we can talk about things and discuss these things. Like, why is the news the way it is? Could it be any different? A lot of major news organizations, in fact, the biggest, don't really have such an avenue, don't really have such a forum. There's letters to the editor, but a lot of letters never get published, never even get read. And sometimes there's not even a response. There might be direct criticism of the newspaper and the media outlets' coverage, but that will just be ignored. Sometimes it's addressed, but there's a lot of cases where it simply isn't. And sometimes that's understandable because there's just such an incredible volume of feedback and criticism sometimes to any given major media outlet. But it still is a bit strange, at least to me, that there's no sort of forum like this, like the thing I'm doing right now, where a news worker, a news person, or someone representing the news industry in some respect is interacting with the public and saying, so what do you think of our coverage? What do you think we did there? Do you think we could have done something better, something worse? How do you feel? I mean, sometimes there's surveys and private polls that go out, but just something done in a very public way, kind of like what I'm doing now. It doesn't really exist. In fact, I've met some pretty senior, high up news people here in North America who have engaged me on this, or rather I've engaged them on this. I've said, isn't it strange that there's really nothing in any of the major networks, major news outlets where you can interface with the public and ask them what they think of coverage and try to maybe factor in their feedback into what we do, just to listen to what they have to say about what we do every day in the news business. And a lot of people are very dismissive of that idea. People within the news industry. I remember one person said, like, oh, that'll never work. Like, nah, it's no point in doing that. Like, they won't get it. I've heard senior news people say they won't get it. They won't get what we do. Even if we explain it to them, they won't get it. Which I found really sad and depressing, because I want to believe that I can help people get it, that I can explain how the news business works to a certain degree where people feel a little more comfortable, a little more at home, a little more understanding of what's actually going on. So I didn't want to rest on that. But this was a person in a fairly senior position at a pretty major news outlet saying, nah, there's no point. Don't even bother. So here I am bothering. Here I am doing it because I think it's important. So let's get back to the issue of accountability. Is the press accountable to the public? Sort of. The press hears from the public, as I mentioned. There will be feedback. There will be confrontations in the street sometimes. I don't like that. I don't like when reporters are threatened or menaced by people just trying to do their jobs. I'm certainly not supporting that. But I, as a news worker, want to know where that anger comes from, where that frustration comes from, why people are reacting that way. Is it possible they just misunderstand what we're doing, how we approach our jobs? Could we be doing our jobs better? Could we be approaching what we do every day in a more responsible fashion so that people aren't furious with us? Maybe it's always destined to be that way. Maybe the public will never be fully satisfied with what the press is or what they're doing. But I believe in dialogue. I believe in interaction, and that's part of why I have this channel. So unfortunately, it's a big topic. This is one video of many. But I would say in many cases, the press is not that accountable to the public. In fact, in many cases, as I'm saying, the press doesn't even care what the public thinks, doesn't want to know what the public even has to say. They look down upon the public in many cases. There's a lot of people in newsrooms who feel quite elite. They're accused of being elitist by people on the street or average working class people. And in many cases, those working class people are right. And sometimes the people in the newsroom will even admit, yeah, we're the elite. We're superior. We're much more intelligent than other people out there. And our responsibility is such. And we don't need to listen to what the public has to say. I don't think that's a great view. I think that's a very socially harmful view. I'm trying to change that. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people in the news business who have contempt for the public and don't want to hear what they have to say, even as they claim that they're serving the public interest. They'll collect an award and say, thank you, I am very honored to receive this award for serving the public interest, while they're also insulting the public behind the public's back, or to their fellow colleagues being like, yeah, people out there don't get it, they're idiots. I've heard stuff like that, and it saddens me. I don't want to believe that you all out there, the world, anyone watching this, are all idiots. There might be some of you, but I want to engage people. I think the news business should engage people about how they feel about the news, how it's written, how it's produced, how it's presented, to offer some accountability, because I don't believe a lot currently exists. You can't bring media outlets into court in most Western countries unless it's a defamation case or something similar. And I think that's fine. I don't think the law should necessarily intervene here. I'm not advocating for the passing of more laws, And again, in the United States and in Canada, UK, those laws would not stand because of freedom of the press, which again, I totally believe in and support. I think the press, I think the media, news people like myself have to step up and be more willing to talk to the public, to engage the public on how they feel. And that's part of what I'm doing here. So, how do you feel? Do you think the news cares about you as an average person? Do you think the press takes an interest in your well-being? Do you think it's serving you as a member of the public or not? Write me below. Send me an email. Like this video if you liked it. Keep forgetting to tell people to like the video. I figured they maybe get it by now. YouTube's been around a while. Like it, subscribe, share it around. Let's get the conversation going. Right here on Ask a Newsworker. Thanks for watching.